Hey guys, today is Saturday, February 15th of 2020. Welcome to Backstage with Millionaires. I'm Caleb, your host, and today we're going to be talking about some of the latest startup news that's been happening in India over the course of the last week. Now, the first news item that we're going to be talking about did not happen in India, but it is an Indian company that we're going to be talking about. It's Ola Cabs. They are now fully operational in the capital city of the UK, London. Now, if there's anything that Ola has learned during their rise to power here in India over the course of the last decade, it's that you need to incentivize both your drivers and your riders to use your platform. And that is the exact same approach that they're using in London. So far, Ola has managed to onboard over 25,000 driver partners in London for their 3 ride categories: Comfort, Comfort XL, and Exec. And they've been able to do this by promising drivers that they won't take any commission on ride fares for the first 6 weeks. So that means drivers for the first 6 weeks get to pocket whatever they make. Also, in order to get riders on the platform, they've been offering £25 vouchers to anyone who signs up during the first week of their launch in London. Now, unlike in India, where Ola's only real competitor is Uber, London is actually a pretty crowded market. You've got, of course, Uber, although they were recently banned by London's Transport Authority in November of 2019, and they're in the process of appealing that ban. But you've also got black cabs, which have been around in London for over 100 years. Bolt, which started in London in 2017 and was formerly known as Taxify. Cabby, which pulls together over 50 cab fleets from across the city to utilize London's minicab service. Captain, which has over 20,000 drivers in London. Via Van, which is a joint venture between ride-sharing startup Via and Mercedes-Benz Vans. And Zoox, which is a little bit like Cabby in that it pulls together a list of available taxis and private hires in London. So yeah, there's a lot of competition, and what the future holds for Ola in London is anyone's best guess, but I'm looking forward to seeing how they do. All right, next up in the news, one of the founders of MakeMyTrip, Deep Kalra, is stepping down from his role as CEO of the company. Now, he's not leaving the company. Moving forward, he's going to be the company's executive chairman, and he's making way for his co-founder, Rajesh Megho, to become CEO of the company. So for those of you who don't know, MakeMyTrip Group consists of 3 different brands: MakeMyTrip, GoIbibo, and Redbus. And Deep Kalra was actually instrumental in acquiring those last 2, GoIbibo and Redbus. Thanks to these 2 acquisitions, MakeMyTrip Group has become the largest online travel operator in the country. They control about 60 to 70% of the entire market. So under his new role as CEO, Rajesh Megho is expected to be responsible for driving the next phase of growth for MakeMyTrip Group, and that Deep Kalra is going to be pursuing more strategic initiatives like product innovation, business model innovation, and geographic expansion. All right, next up in the news, Swiggy is launching a new platform called BrandWorks. So let's say that you are a restaurant, a 5-star restaurant, and you've got your dine-in services, you've got your delivery services through Swiggy, and your kitchen is somewhat underutilized, you've got a bit of extra space, but you're feeling a little bit boxed in by your brand, right? For example, maybe you are a Chinese restaurant, but you're in a neighborhood where you know that people are really gonna love to have some really nice Punjabi food, right? But you can't really access those customers because you're a Chinese brand, right? That's your brand, it's Chinese food. Right? You can't just start offering Punjabi food, can you? Well, now with BrandWorks, you can. So basically the way that it works is Swiggy is partnering with these restaurants to co-create new brands. These are delivery-only brands, and they enable these restaurants to access new customers in the area that the restaurant is already operating in. So far, there are 100 brands on the CoWorks platform that Swiggy has co-created with 95 different restaurant partners across 13 cities in India. And I kind of feel like this is a no-brainer for any of the restaurants that Swiggy is approaching and saying, hey guys, look, we've got this platform, it's called BrandWorks. Why don't you come on board and co-create a brand with us? Because 1, the restaurants that are approaching are already well established, they're popular, they're making money, they've got good ratings and reviews, and they also have a bit of underutilized kitchen space, so why not create a secondary stream of revenue? And also it's Swiggy. So they've got all of their customer insights, and they've also got all of their knowledge about building a brand. And to be a restaurant and partner with Swiggy and have them sort of hold your hand through this process would definitely be a great opportunity. All right, next up in the news, the Indian government's Ministry of New and Renewable Energy has set up an industry and investors facilitation center to boost investments in renewable energy. So the idea behind this facilitation center is basically to make investors feel more comfortable with the idea of investing in renewable energy by providing them with timely and accurate information about government policies and programs that are related to renewable energy here in India. And I think that this is a pretty smart thing that the Indian government is doing, where they're saying, listen, investors, come on in, we're gonna keep you in the loop. We're gonna make sure that you have everything that you need to feel confident and comfortable with the investments that you're gonna be making into this space. Because let's face it, I mean, without the investors, growth in the renewable energy sector is gonna be a lot slower, right? And this growth needs to happen. It needs to happen quickly because the Indian government has set this goal or this deadline of having 40% of all of India's energy capacity being renewable energy by 2030. So that's 10 years that they have to sort of start to turn things around and make India a clean, green country. And without the investors, I don't think that that's going to be possible. So it's really important that we keep those guys happy and we make sure that they're interested in this space. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that India, Swachh Bharat. I think that right now, things aren't quite there yet. You've got a lot of air pollution, you've got a lot of trash on the ground, but hopefully in 10, 20 years, things are going to turn around and perhaps India will become sort of a global example of how that can happen, how a country can sort of do a 180 from being this polluted, this country that frankly a lot of other countries look down on and say, wow, look at the mess, right? But perhaps in the future that perception will change. All right, moving on to some funding news, BYJU'S has raised $200 million from General Atlantic. This means that BYJU'S is now officially the third most valuable startup in India, next to Paytm and Oyo. And something that's a little bit crazy about this piece of news is that it's coming weeks after it was announced that BYJU'S had raised $200 million from Tiger Global back in January. So this is another $200 million now being raised from General Atlantic, bringing the total amount of funds that BYJU'S has raised to $1.4 billion. All right, next up in the funding news, 197, which is Paytm's parent company, has invested 40 crores into Paytm Money. Now, this 40 crores is actually just one installment out of a larger commitment that 197 made about 6 months back to invest 250 crores into Paytm Money over the course of the next 18 to 24 months. And for those of you who don't know, Paytm Money was launched back in 2018, and it's a platform for consumers to invest directly into mutual funds without commissions or transaction fees. Over the last 2 years, Paytm Money has partnered with 40 AMCs, that's asset management companies, and they currently have 3 million users on their platform. All right, next up in the funding news, T-Chain startup Chaayos has raised $21.5 million in a mix of equity and debt funding. The equity consists of $18.5 million and was led by Think Investments. Existing investors like Tiger Global, Saif Partners, Integrated Capital, and former WhatsApp CBO Neeraj Arora also participated in the round. And the remaining $3 million, which came in the form of debt, was raised from Innoven Capital. All right, next up on the funding news, online furniture marketplace Pepperfry has raised $40 million in a Series F round. The round was led by Pidilite Industries, and existing investors like Goldman Sachs, Northwest Venture Partners, Bertelsmann, and State Street Advisors also participated in the round. This brings the total amount of funds that Pepperfry has raised to $237.5 million. Next up in the funding news, agritech startup Waycool has raised $30 million in a mix of equity and debt funding. These funds were raised from Lightbox, LGT Lightstone Espada, Dutch Development Bank FMO, and Innoven Capital. And the last piece of funding news that I have for you guys is that Inflexor Ventures has launched a $100 million fund to be invested in early stage tech startups in areas like health tech, fintech, consumer tech, clean tech, ed tech, deep tech, and agritech. All right, that is all the Indian startup news that I have for you guys this week. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts on some of the things that we talked about today? For example, BrandWorks, that's Swiggy's new platform for restaurants. I think that's great for any of the restaurants that are gonna be a part of that platform, but also for foodies like myself, because it's always good to have more diversity in terms of the food that's available to you in your city. Also, Ola Cabs being fully operational in London. I think that's great for Ola. I think it's great for the people of London. What are they called? Londonites, Londoners, the people of London. Great for them too. Hopefully things go well, better than they did for Uber. But also great for India. I think it's cool to see a company that started here in 2010, really going global and entering into these international markets. And then also Deep Kalra stepping down as CEO from MakeMyTrip group. I think that's a pretty big deal as well. So anyways, we talked about a lot of things in this video. So if you have thoughts on any of those topics, would love it if you could leave a comment down below, or if you just enjoyed the video, let me know. And also would love it if you could share this video with anybody that you think would be interested in it. Friends, family, coworkers, really anybody. And again, lastly, thank you so much for watching this episode of Backstage with Millionaires, and I will see you in the next one.